Hey, listen up. We got another episode of Wise Kracks, featuring the crack man himself, Bill Krackomberger, and our co-host, John Orlando, straight from Las Vegas. Wise Kracks is your ticket inside the world of sports betting, with tips, picks, special guests, and more. Only on WSN.com.
Hey guys, welcome to 2023. First episode of Wise Kracks for the new year. Happy New Year to you, Bill Krackomberger.
Happy New Year. Yeah, good. Nice to be on. And I'm glad that we have a really fun guest lined up for you guys this week. He's definitely a character out of a movie and or multiple movies, and so it should be a fun show.
He is you called him a cartoon character, and he is exactly that. And we actually taped this a little earlier today, and here it is right here.
Felix, how you doing? We're going to talk a little bit. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm ready. I waited. My whole day was centered around 5:30.
Oh, wow. Perfect. Well, good. Meet John Orlando, my co-host. You said you may have seen his father once in concert.
I did. I saw him years ago, and I'll tell you what. I did think one time I saw him in Vegas as well when he was performing on the Strip. But what an icon, and what an American icon, and an individual that continues to give back to all his causes. He's he's a chairman of this, he's a chairman of that cause, and he's just a great guy and just a great entertainer. Which I'm a former disc jockey, so I know what good entertainment's all about.
Bill, where have you been hiding this guy for 5 years from me? What's going on here?
Hey, Felix, I'm gonna surprise. I'm not only going to surprise you. I'm going to surprise his son, John. I sent Tony a Train of Life, Old Lang Syne, sung by Suzanne Boyle, which was just a really cool thing about being about life and have the train of life where your family and friends come. John, I sent one to you also. Yeah. But you didn't have that warm, touching feeling that your dad had. So your dad sent me back this, and I hope I get through this. It was such a nice thing he sent me, one of the nicest things. Bill, this is truly the most beautiful Christmas gift of all time. I'm so honored to sit next to you on your train. Truly beautiful and so inspiring. It's one of the most inspiring gifts I ever got. I cherish this and value it forever. Your brother for life, Tony L. So that's what he sent me. Really, really cool. I was touched by it. I sent it to my wife and stuff. It was just really nice. But you see, he knows exactly just from going to concert a couple of times.
Yeah.
Our guest knows what kind of a person your dad is.
You can feel him. You can feel him.
Yeah. Right, Felix? You can feel him on stage. He's on stage. You're in the audience, and you can feel him. Yeah.
Absolutely. You guys are making me cry. I mean, that was touch fitting, anybody because as we get older, we're losing. I'm 70. I'll be 70 next month. And, as we get up in age, we're losing our superstars of the music industry so rapidly. To have anybody around, and especially your father, who was an icon in the music business, that did it with showmanship. I mean, Tony, Orlando, and Don were all about putting on a show. And that's what they did. They put on a music show. And that's why his career lasted for so long, because he never, ever was not able to entertain. And I recall, I'm trying to think, it might have been the Dunes, but I did see him, or Caesar's Palace, but I did see him. And then I saw him, like I said, back in Del Mar at the fairgrounds during the summertime. They have the Del Mar Fair just outside of San Diego. Anybody who's been to San Diego knows the Del Mar racetrack. Well, before the racing season, they would have this fair, and then they would have concerts, and they would have stages all throughout the facility. And the main stage was Tony, Orlando, and Don. And I've seen literally 200 acts over my years of being in California. And besides Milli Vanilli, and all these groups that came on and really branded themselves, it was a memory that I won't ever forget, because I saw Johnny Mathis, I saw Lou Rawls. I saw the Spinners. I mean, it was just incredible. And music's in my DNA. It's always been in my DNA. So to have your father being an icon and then you continue on with his legacy, it's remarkable without any question.
Wow, thank you so much, Felix. I think I've tarnished the legacy, but I appreciate everything you had to say about Dad.
Felix, we've had Tony on in studio, and he still performs, and he just is a bright light in my life too. Whenever he's in town, we'll go to dinner, hang out, we have a good time. And by the way, he would love you.
Yeah, John, for sure.
How much would your dad like?
Forget it. Yeah, that's all I could think of. Yeah. Might replace Bernie on his favorite list with Felix.
You know, I just want to be, a member of Dawn, get on stage with him. Like I was telling this story last week that the Four Tops were in town, and three of the Four Tops are. And they're dead. And Levi Stubbs and I had a chance to meet at MGM in Vegas in 1997. And Obi has passed away. Lawrence Payton has passed away. The only one remaining is Duke. And so I went to their concert 2 weeks ago, and I had an opportunity to meet with Duke. And I said, Duke, can I apply for a member of the Four Tops? Can I be the fifth top? Because that's how connected they were. This group for 35 years never had a member change.
So good.
They went to Levi Stubbs and says, let's make it Levi Stubbs and the Four Tops. And he said, no. These are the Four Tops. These are four childhood friends from Detroit that never had a group change in the history of playing together for 35 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you don't know. That's why I'm here. We're bringing you all up to date here. I mean,
that's amazing. The first non-Tony Orlando concert I ever saw in my life was the Four Tops in Lake Tahoe.
Get out of here.
Yep, Four Tops in Lake Tahoe at Caesar's Palace when I was like maybe 11 or 12. Yeah.
Yeah.
Felix, how'd you get from, where were you from? Beaver Falls? Or like, how did you get from there to being this guy of concerts in California? And Beaver Falls, a little town outside Pittsburgh. You want to tell them where you're from? I actually know some there's all wise guys all throughout Pennsylvania. People don't know. They just think Philly, like the Philly guys are wise. There's all that northern Pennsylvania, forget it. I'm sorry, northwestern Pennsylvania, I should say.
Yep.
All my friends there, I know guys at Wheeling. I know guys that were like Steuben, even though it's Ohio, Steubenville, not that far, but between Pittsburgh and there. God, how did you get from there to I guess Vegas? You were 25 years in Vegas and California. Tell the people, how'd you get, growing up?
Growing up, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, just 40 miles north of Pittsburgh. And I had an opportunity, as football was king, and this is during the 60s. And when I grew up, there was so much action around my hometown with sports stars. I come from the cradle of quarterbacks with Marino and Montana and Kelly, and then football was king. And I was always a basketball junkie. I patterned my game after another Pennsylvanian named Pistol Pete Maravich, who came from Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. But let me tell you how timely your comment was. You're not going to believe this in a million years. I went to college at the University of Steubenville. It was called Steubenville College. It was a Catholic college. And when I tell you about learning life experiences, I was a walk-on basketball player. I went to Elwood City High School just nearby Beaver Falls. We were in the coveted Section 3 of the WPIAL. That's the Western Pennsylvania Interscholastic League. And Section 3 had the most state champions of any section within that region of the district of the competition. And so I went to Steubenville as a walk-on. And this is a great story because I remember meeting my first friend from Steubenville. His name was Dominic, and he told me on the weekend we were going to this restaurant in Steubenville after the football game. And anybody knows anything about Steubenville, they have the Catholic school Steubenville Big Red. Back in the 60s, they used to have 18,000 fans come to their high school games. But after that, we went to this Italian restaurant. The name escapes me in Steubenville, but Dean Martin was from Steubenville, and so was Jimmy the Creek. Okay.
Yep.
And I remember this. I remember as an 18-year-old kid walking into this restaurant and seeing guys with no necks and just decked out in beautiful suits. I mean, silk shirts. I mean, just beautiful suits. And I'm thinking, like, what do these guys do? I mean, everyone was called Tony and Marco and Nico and No Knuckles and what have you. They all had nicknames, but it was just a great time because Steubenville was, back in the day of the mob, they would drive down Interstate 40 into Steubenville, and they would divvy up the money. And it was just a really, an underground connection back there, Steubenville and Youngstown. But Steubenville, not the cleanest city, voted one of the dirtiest cities in America at that time. Do you mean
dirty, like red light dirty red light district, or
no? It was just
actual dirty.
Yeah. Well, what happened was that there would be steel mills. Remember, in the '60s, all the way down the Ohio. All the way down the Ohio River were mill towns. Aliquippa, there was a 13-mile plant called Jones and Laughlin. As you drove from Beaver Falls to Aliquippa, it was maybe a 20-mile radius, a ride. But as you would drive toward that area, you'd say the big steel makers, which was Jones and Laughlin. And so what would happen, it would just filter down the Ohio River into these little communities like Weirton and West Virginia and what have you. And what happened was that they would give out soot. So if you washed your car in Steubenville at 11 a.m. and you came back after lunch, it would be completely filled with soot. Wow. And it was a dirt. It was voted the dirtiest city, but it was it was such a great time being down there and being a part of Ohio. I'll tell you a funny story that, I was a walk-on, and in my senior year, I started smoking marijuana. And so, like, I had to go down for an orientation from Western Pennsylvania. And my father just had a brand new 1971 Chevy Impala convertible. And I put the top down. I told him I'm going to Steubenville for my visit, my orientation. And on the way down, I started smoking this joint. And I was driving, and all of a sudden I see a sign, "Welcome to West Virginia." And I'm thinking, oh, wow, man, where did I go wrong? We didn't have any GPS or Google Maps or anything like that. So I went to this gas station, and an African-American, a black man, I said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, "But I think I'm lost." I said, "I'm looking for Steubenville." And he's, "Oh, yeah, no problem. Just go over the bridge and you'll be in Ohio." And so I was relieved. I was thinking when I was high, I was thinking, wow, I'm in West Virginia, man. I must have made some wrong turn somewhere. But, those areas, that's what they call it, the tri-state area of Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. They were so closely connected, and it was the best time of my life growing up in my town, Elwood City. Small town. Most people don't know where it is, but we have a man who still has a Major League Baseball record. His name was Hack Wilson.
Sure.
He's the all-time leader in RBIs. But I grew up in a great time in the 60s, watching Mike Ditka, watching Joe Namath, watching Richie Allen. And I still have connections back there. And, there's a big difference between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh guys, because us Pittsburgh guys go to Philadelphia, we'd always steal their women. Okay. We'd always take those women back to Pittsburgh with us, but Philadelphia never could steal our Pittsburgh women. They had all the, Frankie Avalon and all the great artists back there in Philadelphia.
Bobby Rydell and Fabian.
Yeah, Fabian, Bobby Vinton, the Pittsburgh guy. And my godfather's son, which is Donnie Iris of the Jaggers. They made the song "The Rapper" in 1969, became the #1 hit song, and Donnie Iris is still playing music. Donnie Iris and the Cruisers. He played with Wild Cherry, play that funky music. He played the guitar on that, but it's all, music's always, because you have to understand, guys, that back then and there, they were 12 different cities that were a part of the Beaver Valley of Western Pennsylvania. And there was athlete after athlete after athlete. And what we would do on weekends is we would go down to like an Italian hall or a Legion hall, and there would be dances, and there would be DJs there. It would be a DJ there, and the girls would dance with the girls, and the guys would just stand around looking at what girl they wanted to meet. And there was all different cities. I can remember one night being down there with Tony Dorsett. Tony went to Hopewell.
Now you're talking.
Everybody went to Aliquippa. Okay, everybody said that he went to Aliquippa High School. No, Tony went to Hopewell, and Tony was a tremendous basketball player in addition to becoming, a Heisman Trophy winner at Pittsburgh. So during those years, those formative years in the 60s, football was king. I mean, Mike Lucci and Ditka, as I mentioned, and just the great football players. Terry Hanratty went to Butler. Chuck Landolfi went to Notre Dame. And football was king. And I can remember, like as a 7-year-older, my father taking me to another steel town called Beaver Falls, the home of Joe Namath. And what was the most remarkable takeaway that I ever had with being with my dad at that game is that they were outside and they were betting. They were betting high school games. This is like 1959. I must have been 6 or 7, but I can remember asking my dad, what's -7 mean? Or what's -10 mean? And my dad said, oh, don't worry about that on the way home. I'll tell you some other time. I said, Dad, but these guys were exchanging money. What was going on? He says, oh, they were, probably paying off debts that they might have had or loans. And no, they weren't. They were outside Reeves Stadium on the campus of Geneva College in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, one of the notorious stadiums, and they were betting. So high school betting in Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania was the king of high school football back in my day. It is transmitted to all different states. Where are you from?
So my dad, just to let you know, my dad was literally raised in Southeast Ohio. I'm going to say by Parkersburg, West Virginia, Athens, Ohio, little country town there. Football was everything. High school football was everything every Saturday. Big thing. Friday night football was a giant thing. And I used to go back there every year with my grandparents, my dad's parents. I used to literally go to the state fair in Columbus, the country fairs, the county fairs, truck pulls, tractor pulls, demolition derby. No one would know that side of me because my mother was Italian. I spent a lot of summers with her family, and I was raised on a boardwalk town in New Jersey. But yet I did go back there for the county fairs and those fairs, and I know it meant a lot. But however, the big difference is, and that was only like 50 miles from you, there wasn't really a gambling aspect there. People didn't gamble, but yet I know in Steubenville and Youngstown and even Pittsburgh, a lot of gamblers came from that area. How did it start? Pittsburgh, Jack Franzi, Jimmy Vaccaro, who we've had on the show. These guys were all involved in gambling back then. Did it come from the dens of Steubenville and that red light districts of Youngstown and those two towns? Probably they had underground legit gambling, right? That people can come in and just, put money on a table and gamble. Same thing with sports. Am I understanding this right, Felix?
Yeah, absolutely right. They had the red light district where Wheeling, West Virginia, where all the cat houses were. So people would go and leave Pittsburgh and go down to Wheeling and they'd get their business taken care of. And and it was gambling there. There was a big, heavy underflow of gambling in my hometown. And where it was held was at the Italian Club, the Sons of Italy, or the Victor Emmanuel. And I could remember that as early as 17 years old, every Sunday, maybe even every Saturday, going to the club, and they would have poker tables, and we would sit down, and we weren't playing Hold'em back then, but we were playing 7-card stud.
7-card stud was a big game, right?
Yep. That was the only game.
Hey guys, we'll be back to the interview in 1 second, but I wanted to take a minute and remind you, if you have not already downloaded the Crack Wins app on Apple, Google Play, or just gone to the crackwins.com website, you are missing out. There's plenty of money to make with Bill Krackomberger. You can get in the winner's circle today. Download the Crack Wins app. It's on Apple. It's on Google Play. The Crack Man, as always, is killing it.
We are destroying. I hate to say that we are beating them up here. We're having a great season again. College basketball, the NFL stuff, the props. We've had a really good season. I'm really blessed to have a really good football season too. This college basketball has been really good this season. I know it's funny. We were like 61-36, and I told one of my buddies, how did I lose a couple clients? 61-37. I mean, I just don't. Sometimes you just don't understand how people. You know what they say sometimes though. They say, well, because I talked to a couple of them, and I said, well, I was parlaying stuff, and I just can't do it no more. I'm parlaying my own stuff with it, and I'm parlaying your stuff. You'll go 3-1. I needed all 4 of them to win, or you'll go 2-1. Needed all 3 to win. Guys, you got to bet real simple. Bet the games, bet them straight, bet them like I tell you, bet them the unit-wise. It's crazy doing anything else. So
they're missing out on the money management part, right? They're missing out on the bankroll management when you go rogue.
Sure. Crackwins.com and the Crackwins app. Get in there and literally, change your life around, and just listen to us. I say change your life around. Change your sports betting life around. All right, here we go.
And this is a funny story because there was a guy named Archie from my hometown, and what they had in this Italian club, they had 4 or 5 different games going, and they were raking out every pot. They were making thousands, and some of these games started Friday night and didn't end till Sunday night. They played 24/7 around the clock, and I'll never forget this. And this is so timely to tell you this because it's such a great story. There was a man named Archie, and I won't give his last name, but he was there, and we were watching this game. Now, this has to be 1969, and we were watching this game, and it was against the San Francisco 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys. And Archie bet on the 49ers, and the 49ers led by 3 points going to the fourth quarter, and Dallas scored 17 unanswered points and beat him. And he had money bet on him, and I could remember him just bitching about how in the frick could the 49ers lose this game. So speed up the clock to 3 years ago. I'm in a restaurant, and I run into none other than the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers in that game, John Brody. And so John Brody has been an icon, not only as a football player, a great player at Stanford, not only as a broadcaster, but he's a scratch golfer. And so I get to meet him, and I'm in awe. I said, John Brody, I said, being from Western Pennsylvania, I said, I followed your whole career. And I said, I got one question for you. Do you remember the 1969 NFC Championship game between the Dallas Cowboys and the 49ers? And I swear to God, he must be 80 years old now. He relived every moment of that fourth quarter. And he told me it was the heartbreak because he was the player of the year. He was the player of the year that year for the 49ers, and that year, the loser, I don't know how many playoff teams they had. What they did is they had 3 divisions. They had 3 divisions, and they gave 1 wild card. Well, if they win that, they go to the Super Bowl, and he never made it back to the Super Bowl. But I just saw him Sunday. And I'll tell you what.
Tell us about how'd you get to Vegas? How did you get to California from there? That's people's dream to get out of a town, an area like that, and make it out to, LA or San Diego, Vegas, whatever.
Yeah, well, Thank you for that. And you're right. Western Pennsylvania. My father and mother. They're both deceased, and my mother knew that I was always sprung and hatched for bigger than what a steel town, because when you get stuck in a steel town and get stuck in a steel mill, you become stuck for life. And the money's good. An 18 or 19-year-old kid's making $30-$40 an hour, cash, $700 a week, buying brand new cars, but there's no life. So I moved to Florida, and I lived in Florida because my sister lived down in Florida, and I went down to visit her in Orlando, and this was in 1972. And I lived in Orlando for 2 years, and I was always involved in a lot of different fashion. Retail and selling clothes was always something that came very natural because I'm a people person. So I had a fight with my girlfriend. We broke up, and I decided that I don't want to be in Florida anymore. So I had another sister who lived in Los Angeles. And so I called her up and said, I'm selling all my stuff. I'm coming to Los Angeles. And I went to Los Angeles. Now, this is in 1973. And so I go to LA, and I live with my sister for a couple weeks, and then we drive through Wilshire Boulevard, through Beverly Hills, and we get to Westwood, and that's a campus of UCLA. Yep. And I'm a basketball player, and so I say I want to live in UCLA. So I go in and start looking for a job, and I get a job, and
Oh, we lost you, Felix.
He's back. He's probably getting a call.
Okay.
No, let me just turn. No, I'm
just
put
a light
sure.
on. Like we want to see.
There you go. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, there you go.
How's
just
that?
Because you were going on the lam doesn't mean that you're not going to be seen here. Okay.
Well, I'm in the Federal Witness Protection Program, so I got
sure.
Keep it dim. You got to keep it dim.
Getting to California, I worked at Fred Siegel, which
no way on Melrose or in Santa Monica.
In the history of LA, they had a store in Melrose.
Which one?
On Melrose?
Yeah, John knows it.
Melrose and Crescent.
Yeah.
In a really nice district of Los Angeles. And my friend lived in San Diego, and he had 5 waterbed stores. He was a friend of mine from Elwood City, Pennsylvania. His name was Chuck Gerson. And he came out to California, and he opened up 5 waterbeds, and they were booming. And so I called him one day, and he said, why don't you come on down to San Diego? And I have a guest house. You could spend a weekend. And so I did. And so I went to Solana Beach, just outside where the racetrack is, and I fell in love with it. I mean, it was just great. And he took me to a nightclub. And we went in this nightclub, and it was just a great nightclub. And there wasn't that many people there, and it was just beautiful because it was ocean view, and everything was just great back in those days. I'm talking about the mid 70s. And I got the job. I went back to LA, and I had a dream. I had a dream that I was moving to Solana Beach, and I was going to become a disc jockey at this club. And like the dream was so vivid. And so would you believe that when I came to San Diego and I was working for Chuck Gerson at the bedroom, another friend of mine comes and tells me who was meeting, it was from the same area, was in town. He was going to a private discotheque called the Oz, and that he was going to apply for a bartender's job. And so when I was in LA, every Sunday night, I would go to a private club called My Place in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
And I would watch this lady DJ with records. Her name was Yvonne, and she was DJ Yvonne. She was an African beautiful lady, and she spun records. And I said, I can do this. Because when we would go back to Pennsylvania, back to those days when we would go to these the little dance halls, there would be a DJ there, and I liked it. I liked music, and so what happened was that we get to the Oz, and I get the backup DJ on Sunday nights. Okay, and so finally, this club that Solana Beach was sold, and it was become a discotheque. And so I scampered behind the scenes, and I called the people. They were from Denver, Colorado. They said, yeah, they bought it. They're going to build, and they're going to have the first discotheque in San Diego, in North County, San Diego. And I said, well, I'm your man. I want to be the DJ. And they said, well, where can we see you? And I said, well, you can come on Sunday nights down to the Oz. Well, It just so happened to be that the Sunday night that they came in was a 3-day weekend, and the place was packed. And I spun records, and they said before I left, "You got the job. We'll see you real soon." And they hired me. And that's where I got my DJ start in Solana Beach at a place called the old Number 7 Distillery. So I'm spinning, and everybody's talking about the season. I'm talking about, what season are you talking about? Football season? They said, no, racing season. I said, what's racing season? And they said, oh, racing season is the thoroughbreds come down here. Now, I've never been to the track, okay, prior to coming to California.
Never in your life?
However,
never in your life.
When I went to Catholic school, I used to clean the priest's car for like $5. I would vacuum it and clean it, and I would see tickets that would have WP, 50 WP on it. And they were 50 win-in place tickets at a place called Waterford Park. And I could never understand like what these tickets were. Well, 1977 was the first time I ever went to a racetrack, and I made my first bet. And when that ticket came out, it had $20 WP. It brought me back to my childhood where Father Biondi was a horse player. He was betting on the horses. That first season that I worked there, I worked every single racing day for 47 straight days because I wanted nobody to take my job. I was the DJ at the most prolific, the most outstanding nightclub that you could ever imagine. There would be people like Angie Dickinson, Burt Bacharach, Jack Klugman, I mean, Willie Shoemaker. I mean, it was incredible. It was like every night I could tell you what time it was by how many people were in this club. And I mean, we had an average of 400 or 500 people there. And that's where I got my big break in San Diego music wise. And then my DNA in life is basketball. And I've always wanted to be affiliated with basketball. And so when the disco scene died out, that was like a short 2-year run. In 1981, I blistered this general manager of the San Diego Clippers to hire me. And I bothered him for 6 months to give me a job, and he wouldn't give me a job. And finally, one day I kept on going down to his office and putting, things to do. And I would put things to do, call Felix Taverna for the job. Okay. And so finally he calls me and he says, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow morning in my office. And I drove to the sports arena and I'm really excited. And he says, let me make one thing clear. I don't know if you're qualified for this job, but I'm going to hire you because I don't want you to bother me anymore. Okay. Because you've been relentless. And I worked for the Clippers for 2 years. And that was when Donald Sterling bought the franchise. And shortly after that, the Clippers made a trade for Joe Jellybean Bryant, and I became very good friends with Joe and Pamela, Kobe's mother and dad. And at 3 years old, I wrecked my brain thinking back at that, but I held Kobe as a little baby boy, and Jelly and I and Michael Brooks, who went to LaSalle at that time, was a draft choice by the Clippers. We all became very good friends, and that's how I got in there. And then the guy that hired me from the Clippers was doing the replay show on Prime Ticket, which was the first regional outlet station that was in California. And he said, hey, I need you. And I said, what do you mean need me? He goes, I need you to interview some jockeys for the team. I said, I don't know anything about horse racing. He said, but you'll learn. And so then every night I was on Prime Ticket and I would go ahead and interview a jockey, a trainer, Tim Conway, Milton Berle, Telly Savalas, Gary Stevens, Charlie Whittingham. And that's how I got in. So we were supposed to do a radio show after the racing season, he and I, and he got the job. Peter Uberoff called him and said, I want you to be my TV guy to handle all for the World Cup for soccer. And so he leaves me there. He leaves me there at the studio And I have never done radio in my life, and I have a 30-minute show to do. And if you ever think of anything worse than talking for 30 minutes straight, it's not an easy thing to do. And that's
you just did it. You just did it
just for Del Mar, for the meet. So then my father passed away, and on my way back to California, I thought, well, what am I going to do? You know I like radio, and I know I like horse racing. So I called my friend in Vegas. His name was Charles. And it was before the internet, or I don't even know, cell phones, what have you. And I called him, and I said, hey, Charles, I need you to do me a favor. And he says, what is that? And I said, I need you to go to the phone booth and tear out all the radio stations in the yellow pages that are in Las Vegas and mail them to me. And he does that. And 2 days later or 3 days later, I get all the stations, and I start calling every station in Vegas. You know, hey, I'm Felix Taverna. I'm trying to do this radio show, horse racing. Would you be interested? No, thank you. Okay, next one. Hey, I'm Felix Taverna. I like to do this radio show in Vegas. Is there any openings at your station? No, sorry. So then I call this one guy. His name was Jerry, and he was at KVEG 840, and Scott Farrell was on. Scott Farrell, that's where he was just in town and breaking his brand to the airwaves. And I called this guy 840 KVG. I said, hey, my name is Felix Taverna, and I want to do my thoroughbred horse racing show. And he goes, when do you want to do it? I said, I want to do it on Saturdays from 8 to 9. He says, I'll tell you what. He says, if you have a check in my office by Friday for the amount, and it was very, very cheap. It was like $2,500 a month. And he said, if you give me a check by Friday, you can go on Saturday. So what I did is I drove, and I caught a friend of mine from the racetrack. And I said, we're going to Vegas. And I said, all I need you to do is sit in the studio, and I just ask you questions, and you just handicap horses. And that's what we did. And he shortly passed away. And then I was in the MGM, which was enlightening itself, because Terry Lanny, as we talked about, really liked horse racing, and he was trying to find a way to support my show. And I met a guy named Kenny Daniels, and you told me you had Duke Matias on a couple weeks ago. Duke Matias and Kenny Daniels were two of the best handicappers I've ever seen. Kenny Daniels worked with me on the radio show. I nicknamed him KD. He was a Ragus and sheep player, and he was the sharpest handicapper I've ever been around. Kenny and I worked 15 years together until his passing, April 2015. And he made the show. I mean, we were on KVEG, and it was a booming Clear Channel station that went from here to heaven.
I know the station.
And every Saturday it was called the Thoroughbred Hotline. And that's how I found myself. When I went to Vegas, they said, well, this show like this might last 6 months at the most. Well, this Saturday, January 7th, 2023, it's 25 years I've been doing radio.
Wow.
Highlighting around the very tough sport right now, thoroughbred horse racing. And the name of the show is called Race and Sports Radio. And it's named after what it was all about in Vegas. If you wanted to bet horses, there was a race book. But if you wanted to bet sports, you had to go to a different area of the casino. Yep. Race and sports. I always felt there was a combination between the crossover of a horse player to a sports gambler, and you know better than that.
And don't forget to head on over to WSN.com, especially if you want some free money, because they are giving it away in a lot of those sports books, right, Bill? I mean, literally free money for first-timers.
Someone told me today and asked me today about the site and WSN.com. And they said, well, why would I go there rather than going to the actual sports book itself? I said, well, I gave them a little test. I said, well, go to one of the sports books, see what they offer, then go to WSN and see what they offer in your jurisdiction. Matter of fact, I'm on the site now. I could just tell you, now this is not any specific jurisdiction. $1,000 deposit bonus at DraftKings, $1,000 risk-free bet at MGM, $1,000 risk-free bet at FanDuel. And you can go on and on and on. And as I speak, I'm actually scrolling up and down the site. It's all now. Just go to your jurisdiction, and you can see the negotiated bonuses that they've given for your jurisdiction. That's one of my favorite sections of the site. But also the latest from NBA, NFL predictions. Of course, your sports betting sites. Now I'm looking here. There is our beautiful faces there on the WSN podcast. All of our podcasts we've done is on there. The latest prediction odds, U.S. sports betting news. Literally talking about Ohio, which just begun sports betting on the 1st, and on here is Oregon. Some of the states that don't have sports betting yet, there's articles on them also. Articles on Florida, articles on California. So get all your casino bonuses, all our shows, anything that really, the new stories that get updated there. I'm looking at daily stories. I'm talking 5, 6 stories, 8 stories, 8 different articles a week that are updated here. WSN.com for all your gambling needs.
Here's a fun fact. Terry Lanny was my first business reference.
Oh, wow.
I would send out for when I started my PR firm.
What a great guy.
Terry was nice enough. He was real tight with my dad.
Him way too young.
Yeah. Great guy, Terry Lanny. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Terry is that character that what's his name? Andy Garcia plays in Ocean's 11 is kind of patterned after Terry Lanny. That's why his name is Terry in the movie. 2 little fun facts. Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
Well, let me tell you. I didn't know anybody in Vegas. I only knew a couple people. Charles, my friend. I didn't know anywhere to get around Vegas, and all I knew is that I had to get a sponsor for the show. And Terry Lanny owned horses, and he was a California guy, graduated from USC, very, very smart. Kirk Kerkorian, his right-hand man. He left Caesar's Palace and he took over MGM. And I figured, okay, if I could get to him, he has an interest in horse racing, because people didn't really care about horse racing. It was just, it was dingy, backroom, cigar smokers, losers, what have you. And they don't bring anything to the table. I mean, they comp everybody. If you think about it, they comp a blackjack player, they comp a poker player, they comp a slot player, but they never comp a horse player. And the horse player brings his money and he bets at that race book. And so I reached out to Terry, and he invites me over to his office, the MGM, and he was so kind and so nice to me. And he says, I'm gonna take a shot with you. He says, I want you to go downstairs. Our vice president of marketing is a man named Jack Leone. And he said, see Jack. And I could remember skipping down the hall because I was so excited. It was like the Shark Tank when they exited and they're so happy. It was just I'm thinking the MGM. I mean, now I got a sponsor that I could broadcast the show from and be affiliated with, and that's where it all started. Terry Lanny gave me my start, and it was the MGM sponsorship that really put us on the top, because when everybody was else it was referencing and advertising and promoting these other little local casinos, we had MGM, and I was able to use their logo and promote it. And I think about Terry all the time. I think about his office and how disciplined and organized he was, and how much of a do-gooder and a family man, had children, loved people, loved horse racing. He was the only executive that I've ever been around, and I've been around. He's the only executive of his stature to walk down into a race and sports book and shake everybody's hands and welcome them. That's when he was at Caesar's Palace, okay? And I don't think he did that much at MGM, because when he went to MGM, he had to go ahead and manage a number of properties, because they had 5 or 6 properties at that time. And at Caesar's Palace, he was the king over there. But he was such a gift, such a person, and he passed away. The discrepancy on his resume, which, it just came back, and it's just so unfortunate. And here's a man that dedicated himself to the gaming industry, and maybe he falsified a class. I think that's what it was, or a degree from USC 25 years ago. And since MGM was a traded stock, they had to let him go.
It's crazy.
Remember, he left Krackomberger one time and went back to Caesars, and then Kirk knew that he needed him, so he brought him back. But it's good people like that, and he was the last of the good Mohicans in Vegas, without any question.
Bill, I literally have his number in my phone. I can't delete the contact. I can't bring myself to delete the contact. It's crazy.
He was a good guy. He gave a lot of little guys their start too. I know that. Felix is telling the truth. I know someone else he gave a start to, and those guys are gone. Just like you said, the last of the Mohicans. It really was. And you could see John by Felix's voice. He has that radio voice.
For
he
sure.
Really does. Living out there in California now, we are sports betting based. I'm a little tough on horse players. I really am, because I know what listen, I grew up by Monmouth Park, taking literally a bus from Kingsburg to Eatontown to Oceanport, and being a little degen as a kid, and just seeing all these characters my whole entire life, and knowing what horse racing's done to a lot of people and ruined a lot of families, but it's a beautiful thing. I've been to Del Mar many times. I went to Saratoga literally 21 years straight in the summer even though I don't bet a lot on horses, I just love it. It's the atmosphere. It's the Whitneys, the Barrymores, the Orlandos, the Tavernas, the Krackombergers. So, it was just, and then going to Del Mar, I went this season also, and just going with the allure of the people there, but I don't like it. It's a little bit too much, I don't want to say it out loud, but a little bit too much penis measuring, I'll say there, which I don't really care about.
Del Mar?
It's just who thinks who's who, and but it's a classy place too, though.
I love it.
Everyone dresses up nice in certain areas there and stuff. But listen, we always want to remember, horse racing, you can't beat it. It's a 20-25% hold compared to sports, which is I beat, and there are a couple other guys that beat horse racing. Everyone thinks they can beat horse racing. It shouldn't be used like that. There's only a couple guys in my life that I know. We had on Paul Matisse. He just mentioned his brother Duke. We had these guys on here, and we know they win. There's a couple of horse betting groups, horse betting syndicates, negative show pool guys. You have to get a rebate. And there's only a couple guys that beat this game. So I always want to make sure people know that compared to horses, sports is definitely a beatable game. But horses has buried many a good man and broken up many a good family. So I'm sorry. I don't mean to be down on horse racing.
Damn, Bill.
Felix. I'm tough on horse racing. I'm sorry.
Rain on our parade.
I know John loves horses.
I love it. So, it's the best.
Sorry.
Yeah,
and they love him, by the way. They also love him.
I can see why. He has an infectious personality, and he's just a very, very nice spoken young man. Now, let me tell you something there, Mr. Host. Have you ever been to Del Mar opening day?
Of course. Yes. It's the best.
Last year. Yeah.
I'm talking about you. You're a co-host. You're the host of this. I'm talking about you, Mr. Krack.
Oh, Crack.
Yeah, Crack.
Yeah.
Come on.
He's been.
Last year.
Yeah.
Opening day? Were you there opening day? Okay.
Opening day is the best.
It was something.
Yeah. It's right up there with Derby.
Yeah. Oh no, I love it. I love going there. I love it. It was a great thing. I'm not saying that, it's a piece of history there. I absolutely love it. I know how it started. I know I absolutely love the history behind it. And all I want people to know is that I don't want them to fall into the pitfalls. I was a little degen. I was a degen. I was a loser for many, many years. My degen came from going to the racetrack and being my little buddies who were cool and stuff, not knowing that there was a 20%, 25% take. I didn't know that. I didn't know the take at a racetrack. Every $100 you put in, you're only giving back the public 75. So listen, it should be used as a social thing. You have fun, enjoy it with the family, enjoy it with your friends, but don't think you're going to make a living betting horses. That's all I want the public to know.
You like we always say, and I love the game. I love the pageantry. I love the horses more so than anything else. I just love a horse. I mean, the horses is the backbone of our community. They won wars. They built bridges. They were a very important animal to the fabric of our country. And these thoroughbreds are taken care of quite well, and they don't get the trainers and the owners, the trainers and the hot walkers and the grooms don't give very much credit. All they hear about the negative tone of a horse race or so forth. But let me tell you, Del Mar started in 1938, and it was a playground created by Bing Crosby, and they came down here and they got the land, and it's been celebrity driven for years. Now, as we see tracks closing, horse racing through the decades have changed up into the present. But going back, horse racing was the only game in town. There weren't any lotteries. There weren't any casinos. And so the only way that you could gamble and make a score was by betting the horses. Well, they have competition now. There's Indian reservations, casinos, there's lotteries, there's bingo, there's this, there's that. And so horse racing is not the only game in town any longer. But to your statement, which should be repeated, that Kenny Daniels was a professional handicapper along with Duke Matias, and they put their effort, they did their work. As a sports bettor, let's be frank. If you're a winner, you got to do the work. And if you don't do the work, I mean, there's a lot of angles and a lot of different factors that go into breaking down a game. And there's so much information. As we move forward with new technology, there wasn't any internet during the time when we were doing it. And, we were getting information from, the backstretch of people, telling me that they had this horse. Now, you can't keep a secret on the backstretch. I mean, there's so many clockers, there's so many handicapping sites there. But I think that Del Mar sits alone because it's such a traditional place to be. It's a short meet. It's only 7 weeks during the summer. It has the best racing dates. There's only 2 tracks that go 1 and 2 every year: Saratoga and Del Mar, and they're both run at the same town. Saratoga on the east, as you know, Saratoga Springs, and Del Mar here on the west. And those are the 2 of the racetracks that probably are the most dominant in regards to building brand and then continuing on. I think if you had Del Mar in March or April, would it be successful as it is in June, July, and August and September? No. And they did, they created about 10 years ago a fall meeting at Del Mar where there was only a summertime meeting. And now listen to this. I'll take you back to 1977. In order to bet a horse race back in 1977, there were no OTBs. Okay, so if you wanted to bet Del Mar, you had to be on track. And so everybody would come from LA and they would rent houses for the whole meet. Now, if you were renting your house for $3,000 a month, you were able to double or triple that for 7 weeks for the racing, for the trainers, for the jockeys. They would come down. So if you owned a house in Del Mar during that time, you packed up everything, put it in storage. You rented your house for the 7 weeks. You took the $10,000 to $15,000, 4 or 5 times your mortgage payment for the 7 weeks, and you would rent the house out. And that was the only way you can bet horse racing. Well, 1989 OTB came where that, there was little satellite places where that you could build or you could bet, and basically that's where the whole industry became fragmented. It became fragmented because you had all these OTBs where, from LA to Del Mar is 101 miles. I had friends that used to drive back and forth every day because the first post was at 2:00. They'd work in the morning. They'd leave their house at 11:30. They'd make it to the track at 1:30. First post was at 2:00. They'd go to the races. They'd drive back up and they'd drive back. That was the only way that you could have any action back then.
Wow.
Well, listen, Felix, unfortunately, we've been on for an hour already, so we're going to have to get you on a second time to talk about some sports betting angles. John, do you have anything for Felix before we let him go?
Yeah, I had one question. Back to, you were talking about card rooms back in the day, like poker, in the rooms back east. Did those get raided by police a lot back in the day?
No, they were all controlled because they were paid off. Matter of fact, we had cops back there in Elwood City, Pennsylvania. After their shift, they would come to the Italian. There was nothing back there in the wintertime. You're talking about cold December nights back in Western Pennsylvania where the chill factor was bone cracking. And it was just a haven. And, the Italians always found ways to earn, okay, and they did it illegally. My grandmother, she used to run numbers, okay? She used to run, they would go in on the deficit of the gross national product every morning in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. The last three numbers would be the winning numbers. And so people would go and she'd take $1 and they'd say, okay, I want to play 3-3-7 or I play 4-5-6. And she would take the $1. And so it was all underground, and I want to tell you that there was so much action back there because it was everybody wanted to gamble. I'd love to come back on, and I want to tell you.
We want you back on. We're only an hour, and we went an hour already. And
that's too bad.
Do some other things.
Yeah, but, that's too bad. You're
that's
getting,
okay though. We'll get you back on. Though.
Yeah, we'll do part two.
We'll do part two with you.
Yeah, because I want to talk to you about a lot of things that would be pertinent to your audience about how horse racing has really changed betting wise, and where did it miss the boat, and more so of you being in Vegas. My bestie, my all-time bestie in this world was Jerry Tarkanian, and
we didn't even talk about Tark. We'll do that then. Yeah, no, Tark was his best friend. I knew that. We just didn't get into it.
And he loved Vegas. He loved Vegas, and he was an icon. And I could tell you stories that would make you laugh, will make you cry about this man. This man is so genuine, and I miss him every day. He passed away February 11, 2015. And I'll tell you, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think about him in one way or the other. His laugh, his stories, he was just an icon, and he built Vegas. He made Vegas what it is, and I'm so proud to be his friend, and I miss him, like I said, but you're in a good spot to educate and have fun with sports, because if we're seeing what's happening over the last 72 hours, it puts a whole new definition and a meaning on sports and playing the game. And there's there's big money now, fantasy football betting, and everybody has their platforms, BetMGM, bet this, bet that, bet this, bet that, and they are all trying to get the California money. But it didn't pass, and that's the next thing we'll talk about is how Proposition 26 and 27. I mean, come on, can you realize wherever you're from, there are 33 states or 28 states that are legalized gambling, sports betting, and California has dropped the ball twice now on two different fronts. And you think about it, we got 25 million people radius just in the areas that my radio show transmits in, and these people will bet football, but you can't bet football, so they bet it illegally offshore or drive down to Mexico and bet it. There's no reason why San Diego or California, in that matter, shouldn't have sports betting.
It's crazy. California will let you walk into a retail store and take whatever you want and walk right out without paying for it with no consequences, but you can't place any bets on sports. It's nuts. What are we doing?
No. It's beyond comprehension, And my grandfather once told me, whoever owns the venue makes the rules. And I never knew what he meant by that, but now I do, because the Indian tribes wrote the bill twice. They sponsored 26 that would have benefited the racetracks with 3 licenses at the 3 major racetracks in California. So on a Sunday or a Saturday, I could go to the track. I could bet my college football games. I could bet the pro football games on Sunday, in addition to betting horse racing. And we needed it for horse racing, because horse racing is not healthy right now. I mean, it's healthy on the big days, but you have the Breeders' Cup and you have the Triple Crown, the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont, what have you. But on the other days, people aren't coming to the track. I mean, they have jobs to do right now. Back in the 70s, 80s, you could go take a day off of work and go to the track from 2:00. But now we all have to work. And the market share of a horse bettor has been fragmented with the lotteries and other betting styles of betting sports. And it's a good time, though. I mean, anytime we can bet and we can follow it, and if you have a good opinion, you do the work. Hey, look, you guys are professionals, and you do the hard work. You give your information. You try to beat this game. You said horse racing's hard to beat. So is sports. There's just too much information. And if you watch the officiating in some of these games, you kind of wonder, do they have action on these games? Because some of these calls in these bowl games, that TCU Michigan game, there were calls that were just unbelievable, where the ball would land on the 15 and they moved the ball back for TCU at 17. The touchdown was denied. The next play, Michigan fumbled. The targeting call at the end of the game was a flagrant targeting call that would have extended the game. And they were mute, and their whistles did not sound. And you kind of wonder, because
Felix, to beat those games, beating the bowl game, is so difficult. It's like beating an NFL Sunday game. It's not what I specialize in. I specialize in proposition bets, correlations, some certain teasers, first half totals. It's the reason why I'm thrown out of thousands. That's right. Thousands of bookmakers have thrown me out over the last 25 plus years. Our mutual acquaintance can tell you that. We've gotten thrown out of about 30 back in the day. So it's so different. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to disagree with you here. I don't know any guys thrown out of horse books, but I know a lot of guys that are thrown out of, a lot of sharp guys like myself thrown out of sports books. And I'm not even talking about illegal sports books. I'm talking about ones in Las Vegas, Stations casinos, Boyd casinos, Treasure Island. I can go on and on. Thrown out for one thing, using my brain. But Felix, we'll have you on next time again, and we'll catch you again. We're way over here, and thanks for coming on with us. We really appreciate it.
No, I enjoy both you guys. I look forward to meeting both you real soon. You ever come to Del Mar, you're my guest. We'll go to All Say 101 in Solana Beach. I'll give you the best dinner, treat you to the best dinner that you ever had outside of Vegas.
Felix, that's verbally binding, and I will be there.
Yeah, I will be there.
I might need you as a wingman opening day to pull some of these girls in, these cougars,
Sold.
These cougars are on the mouth. All I need is a wingman. I still got game at 70 years old. I just need somebody who could be the magnet to get them there, and we close the deal.
My old nickname's the Cougar Catcher. So I don't know. Is Vanessa going to hear this? I don't
know. No. Felix, we'll see you later.
God bless you guys.
See ya. Well, Bill, this episode flew by.
Yeah. No, he's a good guest. We'll have to get him on again.
Yeah.
He could sure talk.
Well, Happy New Year. This was a good first episode for the 2023 season. And
all right, guys.
You're back in studio next week.
Yep. I'll see you guys next week.
All right. We'll see you guys on Wise Kracks.